Hello, everyone. This is the Epitome of Salt. I'm Kevin, joined by Nate
What's up?
and John,
What's going on?
and we are going to be continuing our set review of the commons for the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Diving right in, we have actually before we dive right in, for those viewers who this is their first time joining us, uh, John, could you please explain the rating system for us?
The rating system is going to be basically A, B, C, and D. And then, since there are no bad cards, only good art, we have the good art section.
And okay, elaborating on that, like what is like a typical A, B, and C, Nate?
Yeah, C is your average card that you're okay playing, but you don't love. B is the things you want to play. A is like game defining card of you will take this pick one, pack one every time and be very happy about it. D is that middling playable. It's like a 23rd, 24th card that you don't really want to play, but you will if you need to. And good art tiers for cards that are just unplayable in limited.
Awesome. And with that,
But they
we're
are good
going.
to look at.
Oh, but absolutely not bad cards, just beautiful art.
Mhm.
We're going to be diving right in with something that is most certainly more than just good art. With Dead Weight, it is a single black for an enchantment aura. You enchant creature, and enchanted creature gets -2/-2.
Fantastic.
This is just
I
a
love this
great
card.
reprint.
Amazing, and it plays. It's not only is it just a great rate, it plays exactly into what you want to be doing in black and in so many colors in the set. It matters for descend. It you know it matters for like being like a permanent in your graveyard. So like because there's like three different flavors of descend, and this triggers one of them or multiple of them, and it's just yeah, excellent card. I
Early game
think
removal stops, kind of bigger threats from, punching in for a lot of damage.
yeah, you can do anything with it, and you can't sacrifice it. So I say that's the only thing that could possibly be wrong with this card. But even then, it's still a great card. I think I'm gonna have to start us off with probably like a solid. It's a little low value, so I'm not. I don't know if it quite pushes into B minus, but I don't know. It's somewhere. Probably it's like C plus for me. C plus B minus.
It's C plus for me. It's a little low value. It's just good, solid early game removal that doesn't have a ton of synergies with anything other than Descend. So it's a solid C plus.
For me, I'm gonna put it up to B. I'm gonna start this off with a B. I think, almost everything in black wants to descend. So the fact that it's gonna be removal, and then when it removes that creature, it's gonna fuel that descending archetype. I'm gonna put it right there in B. I'm gonna take that every time.
You know what? I'm gonna stick with Nate on this one. I think it's a C plus because it is. There's just a lot of big booties out here, and I don't know. I like my. It's not Torch the Tower,
Not
but
quite.
but it's still good. Next thing we have, starting off with another strong common, Greedy Freebooter. What does this card do, Nate?
It's a 1/1 human pirate for 1 black. When it dies, scry 1, make a treasure. This is Aristocrats dot sack fodder, which is very good in that deck. In a lot of other decks, it's maybe a touch low value for other decks, more of the mid-rangey style decks, but when you want to sack this, you want to play this and have it die, and so in the right deck, it's a really solid common.
If I'm playing Black White Aristocrats, I want this guy and that bird in my opening hand every single game.
Yeah.
The one drops with a lot of text are always just end up being so good, and you can like usually never get enough of them. What do you think, John?
Yeah, uh, yeah. Again, another fantastic black card here. I really, this is the color that I think is the strongest in the set, and like this guy, like once you know you're in black white, you're gonna take as many of these guys as you could get. Um, well, maybe not because there's a one drop, but having that, it discourages early attacks, especially if you're just swinging in with like a 2/2, because then on their turn they're gonna be able to drop a 3 drop if they get that treasure.
I'm gonna have to go C plus again. I think it's a big card.
I think
C
it
plus.
comes down a little bit for me, just down to it belongs really in one deck. I think this is going to be I think it comes down to C minus for me, but it's a card that in the right deck goes straight up to C plus B minus.
B minus. Okay, I'm gonna argue with that.
So what are you giving it, John?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say B minus or C minus?
I said C plus. Nate
I
said
I'm
C
C
minus.
plus. I thought Nate said
He's
B
saying
minus.
it in most decks it'll end up being like a. He said in general it's a C minus, but in the right deck it might even go up to a B minus,
Yep.
which I think is
Oh,
reasonable.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
What does this card do, John?
Here it is. I like this guy. Just number one. The art is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
and because he reminds me of one of my first Magic cards, Slitherhead. This is back from Return to Ravnica. Just the art, you know.
Yeah.
But what this guy is a Death Cap marionette, one colorless, one black, for a fungus creature with Death Touch. And when he ETBs, he mills 2 cards, and he's a 1/1.
It's also a May effect. It's not a must.
Oh, that's true. Uh, I again, I think in everything Black is trying to do, uh, that mill two I think is really important here because you want to be putting in cards right away to fuel things for descending. So the fact that he doesn't even have to die for this to happen, I think makes him particularly more powerful than you would just see as a 1/1 death touch.
I see him as a 1/1 death touch. I hate that. Sure, like by himself, you trade him off with the first available target, and you've descended 3 of your 4. Uh, Probably. It's a 1/1 death touch. I don't care. I'm giving this a C minus.
It's a 1/1 death touch, which means it's annoying to deal with. It's not thing I super want to have. Like, is this really what you want your to play a playset of in your, say, green black or blue black descend deck? I don't necessarily know, because especially the green black deck is going to want to be more mid rangey and have a little bit more power and toughness. So this, I'm around C minus too.
I would say just a solid C as we have it here. But if you're playing black green, I would definitely put him in B minus because you want to hit that uh, threshold or descent 4 as quickly as you can. And if this guy, mills 2 permanents and goes to the bin, you're already at descent 3, and you're gonna be fantastic about that. Because those once you get to those 4 descending payoffs, I think the cards get a lot more powerful.
Definitely a card that lives and dies by the descend mechanic. So it'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see how that plays out.
I'm interested to see it in blue black descend control because that's more of a later game deck, and so it'll live and die by how good descend is.
Okay. The Echo of Dust, gray and black. It's a 2/2. It's a vampire spirit. It has descend 4. As long as there are 4 or more permanent cards in your graveyard, Echo of Dust gets +1/+1 and lifelink. So on turn 2, it's a 2/2. And then if you top deck in the late game, it's a 3/3 lifelink. How do you guys feel about that?
Um, for you get a okay for the descent 4. I think in that mid game, you're not gonna hate having him, but the fact that he kind of just durdles around on that turn 2, without really doing anything to further that descent makes me like not excited to play him, but I'll throw him in.
This is a bear with no text in the early to mid game. That makes me really not want to play
You gonna go D or D plus on this guy?
it. Exactly.
I'd go D.
I'm going D.
Yeah, sorry, Echo of Dust. It's just no, that's not how modern Magic the Gathering works.
You
Can't
need
be.
to,
You don't want to be playing bears. I don't care.
yeah.
We had a bear last set in the best color that rummaged if you had a 4 attack creature, and that thing ended up being about that good. So
Yep.
and
Oh yeah.
and rummaging that guy ain't. What does Fanatical offering you, John?
Ooh, this is a fantastic card right here. Fanatical Offering is a 1 generic, 1 black for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. He draws 2 and creates a map token.
And what does a map token do?
It's an artifact that says pay 1 and tap it to sacrifice it, and then target creature you control explores.
And exploring is where they. So it's a little. If the top card of your deck is a land, you draw it. You don't get a choice. If it is not a land, the creature that explored gets a 1/1 counter, and then you can surveil one. You can either put it in the bin or leave it on top. Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a pretty. I think that's actually a pretty decently powerful effect. Now, so how do you feel about sacrificing? And it's an artifact or a creature, so I feel like that's pretty good. It's 2 cards and a map token, which map token isn't quite a card, but it's something. It's relevant. I usually don't like this effect. I feel like it always plays worse than it looks, but I feel like this set has enough going on that like I'm really going to be tempted to put this in my deck a lot. And I feel like a lot of times it's going to be paying me off for it.
This is a huge aristocrats or random artifact you don't want payoff, because this is 2 mana for 2.5 cards at the cost of an artifact or a creature. So in response to removal, you can play this, blank the removal spell, and get 2.5 cards out of the deal, which is quite solid in formats that aren't super aggro, which I'm predicting that this format won't be super aggro. So I really like this.
You don't think you'd play this? This is like you have like an extra like food or like a 1/1 little crapper like on. You just play this guy to gas up your aggro start. Like say
Maybe not to gas it up,
Maybe not to gas
but there
it
is going to be artifacts just sitting on the
or
battlefield.
like what if you swing in with your board? Because I'm always thinking like I don't want my life to be leaving up mana waiting for my opponent to try and remove my sting to like blanket. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would rather be like, what if I swing in with my board and then the thing they block with their like one good block, I then sack that anyways and get the cards to try and keep myself rolling.
I see this kind of in a similar vein to, like, I think this is better like Rowan's Grip Search, if that makes sense. Of the instant if you're gonna play it in an aggro deck, you're using it to keep hitting more gas, not to like gas up until like get going, but once you're going to keep going.
Rowan's Grip Search costing 1 less makes me like it significantly more.
Agreed. And it gets you half a card extra.
Okay, I'm thinking like what, C- for the or B, probably D+ for this guy. These effects always end up being worse than they look.
I would say a C+.
C+.
In this format, I'm gonna say C-.
It's like, yeah, like I don't know, these effects always like I always read them, I think, oh, it's 2 cards, but it's like it's not 3 cards, and that's what it just feels like. Unless you're literally getting 3 for 1 and it's like you're bearing your opponent in value, it's just you get a land, then you get a map token and you get 1.
Also,
Well,
if you're in aristocrats, this immediately becomes at least a C+.
Okay, I could see that. So situationally better, but in the general deck it's like a D+, C-.
D+.
There was in standard a card like this. Instead of a map, it gave you a treasure token. So, and that card was really good.
Well, yeah,
So
but then it
this
costs
is,
1
you
mana.
know, it costs 2.
Well, but yeah, but it costs 1.
It effectively costs 1.
Anyway, okay, it'll be interesting to see how this card plays out. But it'll probably be better than the usual version. But yeah, we'll see. Fungal Fortitude.
1 black for an enchantment aura with flash. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 when it dies, returning to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control.
This thing never.
This is worse, not dead after all.
This never works. This card never works.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I always think, man, this will work, and it's like, it's not even like in Mom how there was the one that like it'll stay around as a weapon.
Yeah.
What do they call that? An equipment. Mm-hmm. It's not even that. It's just an enchantment.
That thing gave Indestructible though.
Yeah, this is not that. This. I think is this going in good art? It's an enchantment, so I think for me this card is really just a beautiful piece of art.
I think it's really cool how this person is really scared how they're being turned into a fungus.
Yeah. How about you?
It almost looks like a little. Oh, it is. It has a little face of. Face.
Yeah, it does. Like, yeah, by the thumb. That's a good catch. I like that. I like that the artist added that detailing. It harkens me back a little bit to Candy Grapple, if you guys remember that card.
Mm-hmm.
How like the candy thing was like eating the guy's hand.
Mm-hmm. Except Candy Grapple was actually good.
Yeah, that's about the only similarity to Candy
Yep.
Grapple.
Mhm.
Mephitic Draught. One and a black. It's an artifact, and when it enters the battlefield or is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw a card and lose a life. Oh, how Hatching Plans has fallen. Hatching Plans this ain't. So would you guys
Now hold
play?
on.
Would you guys play worse Hatching Plans?
Yes. Now
I'm
hear me out.
hearing.
You
I'm
play
listening.
this,
I'm all ears.
right? You play this, draw a card.
Uh huh.
That card is Fanatical Offering.
Uh huh.
Then you sack it to Fanatical Offering.
Okay.
Now you're up 4 cards and a card in your bin for Descend.
So you have one from the battlefield trigger, one from the death trigger. That's you've drawn two.
Plus 2
From plus that you've drawn
offering.
four. So you've paid 2 cards to draw 4 cards, and you paid 2 cards and 2 life to draw 4 cards.
4.5 cards.
And you
You
spent
have
4
mapped.
mana, and the only way you've affected the board is making yourself closer to your own death.
And Descend.
And you've descended.
And Descend. And a map token.
Someone's gonna have to beat me with this before I believe it.
This
That's where I stand on this card. I'm willing to believe there's a world where this works, but I have to see it.
this is here for a few specific decks. This is here for the decks that want sack fodder. Black-white aristocrats will love this as a value engine, as something that they can sack without having to lose a creature and get value from. A blue-black, like more control-y style deck with access to sacking stuff might like this. Red-black, green-black, probably not. So I'm very torn here. I could even see it in like a Esper style artifact control deck. I could see it being useful as a value engine there that is just a piece of sack fodder. That being said, it's too situational for me to say I like it all the time.
This card is a D. And until someone proves me wrong, that's where it stays.
I'm gonna go ahead and say C minus because I think this is a very niche card. So like it fitting that niche, I think it does it what you want it to do.
I think I'm gonna go in between. I'm gonna go D plus. In the right deck, this becomes even like a C plus, and in the wrong deck, this is nice art.
Yep. Okay, cool. So we got the whole spectrum covered. So hopefully someone is right. And when it turned out to be the best card in the set, we'll all just look like absolute fools. Hold on a second. I'm a little slow today. We got next on the list is another 2 mana 1/1 Skullcap Snail. It's 1 and a black for a 1/1, and when it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles a card from their hand. And very important about this is they get to choose which card they get rid of. I'm excited to hear your guys' opinions on this one because I just never have understood why these people love these cards so much, and I've never wanted to put a 2 mana 1/1 in my deck, and I still don't think I do, but I'm willing to have my mind changed.
I think this is kind of the better Nezumi Informant, right? Because it exiles from their hand. And Nezumi Informant got quite a bit of play. Now this is gonna also increase your descend pile because it's gonna be that like sack fodder. It's gonna go to the grave right away. So I think this guy is again a solid like sack fodder piece and does something when it comes in. I'd be happy to play him.
This is a format dependent card. In a format as relatively slow as Mom, a Nuzumi Informant style card has a lot of value in preventing your opponent from getting value from whatever they have in their hand and being sack fodder. And in a format faster, a little bit faster, like, whoa, this is abhorrently bad. Because I think this format is going to be fairly mid-rangey, I think it has its place. Not in every deck, but I do think it has a solid place in some decks that will potentially play 2-3 of these and be pretty happy about it. Similar to how Nezumi Informant was played in Mom.
I'm gonna give this card a D plus, and someone's gonna have to prove it to me. Like I'm gonna have to see the data before I believe any different.
I'm gonna put it at a solid C. A solid C.
I'm with John on this one. I think this is a C. but this is more of a format prediction than it is. I think this card is that good by itself.
Well, either I'm a genius or more likely than not, I don't know what I'm talking about. But only one way to find out. What does this card do, John?
Ooh, Tithing Blade, one colorless and a black for an artifact, and when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. And it also has Craft for 5, or 4 colorless and 1 black, and it crafts into an artifact that says at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
What do you make of this card?
I'm really torn. I think this is going to be good in the blue black deck, but that's where I see it only. I think that losing 1 life and gaining 1 is just going to be so meager, especially going into turn 5, that your whole game plan is to just draw the game out as long as possible. And if there's going to be a deck that does that, it's going to be blue black.
Yeah, this belongs in that. What's that clock card called? The
Oh,
Millennium.
midnight.
Calendar?
The Millennium Calendar.
Oh,
This
yes.
is like the Millennium Calendar, like extra win con. You know, if your Millennium Calendar is like your bottom card, then this guy gets there in about the same time frame.
The backside of this is so embarrassing that if it's drawn, yeah, it's drawn. Like if this is your win condition and it works in this format, someone somewhere has gone horribly wrong.
Yeah.
This is an edict effect on an artifact for 2 mana, which is already like a D plus at best, and the backside is just so embarrassing that it doesn't even bring it up at all. It might as well just be an edict with some really expensive tiny little value stapled on. This is like a D at best.
That's exactly where I am. Is if I'm like short on removal and I just absolutely need something that removes a creature, I'll put this in, and that's what it is. It's a D for me.
I'll go ahead and say I'm gonna say C minus because I think in the best case scenario, this is gonna deal like 5 damage and you're gonna gain 5 life for that backside, and then the edict isn't terrible.
You know what? I respect the tinfoil hat, but only one way to find out. Acolyte of Aklizots. It's 2 and a black for a 1/4 vampire cleric. You can tap it, sacrifice another creature or artifact. Each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. There you go. You just doubled your clock. All you need is an infinite. You see an infinite stream of artifacts or creatures. I always hate these cards that are 1/4s for 3 mana because they don't kill anything and they get blown out by everything. People have played them against me and won games of Magic the Gathering, but for me, it's like these cards always end up being something that I put in if I absolutely need something to keep me alive, but it's not what I want to be putting in my deck. It's like a D for me.
This is what I like to call an emergency sacrifice outlet. If you have a Mephitic draw on the battlefield and you have no other way to get rid of it, then you're pretty happy about this for that one specific scenario. Otherwise, this is like your last resort, I didn't get enough sack outlets kind of card, which puts it in D plus range. And it'll fill its role fine as that.
Yeah, I'd say D. It's not gonna do too much by itself, and when it does do the thing, you're getting marginal value, maybe blank
All right.
on their removal spells.
Triple D's. Another chance. It's 2 and a black. For an instant, you may mill 2 cards, then return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand.
This, to me, 3 mana, instant, draw 2 cards.
Probably.
Allegedly.
Supposedly. This is worse than Back for Seconds.
It's worse than Unsealed and Acropolis.
And those were like what, D pluses in their respective formats? D plus, C
Well,
minus?
I think this is very comparable
I think they
to
C.
Sealed and
They were
Unsealed.
like
is
C minuses?
Acropolis.
Plus is hard.
So this was like slightly worse C minus, but it has like some play in the format.
I just wish this brought back artifacts this
Oh
brought back
yeah.
artifacts, I'd be a lot happier about this. But it only getting back creatures is really painful.
This always
I
seems.
almost think this would be too strong if it brought back artifacts.
I mean, I don't
I
think it's
think
too
then you
strong.
would want to shift that to uncommon because Unsealed the Necropolis was an uncommon.
That's true. Yeah, and but we're comparing it. But we don't care what the rarity is. I just want to say, you know what? Against my better judgment, I'm gonna give this a C minus.
I am too. I am on the. This isn't enough worse than like Unsealed the Necropolis to go below C minus, but it's pretty close.
Like you probably do want one in pretty much every reasonable deck.
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering card. So
Yeah.
okay, I'll give it a C minus.
But I don't
I'll
want to
give it a
play more
solid
than
C.
one.
Okay, C minus, C minus. Not bad. What does this card do, Nate?
Deep Goblin Skull Taker. 2 and a black for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior with Menace. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Deep Goblin Skull Taker. It's a 3-mana 2/2 Menace that sometimes is the 3-mana 3/3 Menace on turn 3.
I just feel like these things never work out. Like I'm always thinking like, oh yeah, it's the 3-drop that has bad stats, but if you just give it a little time, it's gonna be great,
I mean, Menace helps.
Menace does help. Menace is the only reason I'm even considering this card.
Yeah.
But seriously, is this what you want to play on turn 3, and then your opponent plays the enchantment thingy dead weight, and then you just start crying?
Unless you descend on turn 3 somehow as well, in addition to doing this.
You could, yeah, you
I
could.
don't,
Good luck.
I don't think descending on turn 3 is going to be all that hard.
But if you're
Especially when
spending all your mana doing this, are you really
How
descending?
are you descending?
But you're attacking. You're attacking with your 2/2.
So you're
And
value
then
trading
just
your.
after that,
Are you really?
So
Do you
you're-
really want to value trade your 1 or 2 drop though?
so I'm gonna value. So we're gonna trade 2/2s, right?
Uh-huh.
And then you play this. It's gonna become a
Well,
3/3.
Well,
And now
okay.
you're attacking. You're attacking turn 4 with a 3/3 menace. And next turn, say you mill. Now it's a 4/4 menace.
I'm going to be playing white, and I'm going to have a 2/3.
But you only have 1, 2, 3.
Correct, and it's going
And
to
this has menace.
kill your bear and still be there.
No, because it has menace.
Okay, so I'm saying, okay, so this card is actually not as terrible as it looks because it has menace.
Correct.
Yes.
If it didn't have menace, it would be pretty unplayable. But because it has menace, I'll think about it.
Would a 3/3 menace with no text be like a pretty decent playable?
For 3 mana?
Yes.
Yes.
So you really need to descend once before this guy dies.
Yeah, and in black, that's really where what you want to be doing. Like it would be essentially like white in this format not dropping an artifact or creating a token. I think black is just so set on this descend mechanic that if you're really playing black and not playing descend, I think you're going to be messing up in this format.
If this card couldn't grow, what would you give this? It was just a literal just 2/2 menace with no text on it.
I wouldn't play it if it was just a 2/2 with no text.
So you give it a good art tier.
Yeah. Maybe a D minus?
I'll give it a D plus, and then if it ends up being like a solid C, I wouldn't be surprised. But it's a 3-mana 2. It doesn't until it has text. It doesn't have any text because if you draw this in the late game, you just plop it down and you just start crying.
Yeah. I went from if it's a 2/2 menace for 3, it's barely good art D minus to if it's a 3-mana 3/3 menace, it's like a C plus probably, and then because you have to meet this requirement, and if you draw in the late game, it's a 3-mana 2/2 menace. It falls all the way down a tier to D plus for me.
Okay.
I'm gonna say C plus because I think even in the late game, you could still do that. Like you're gonna trade and just be playing this main phase too.
Yeah. John has picked his hill, and now we get to see if he's going to descend on it.
Alright, speaking of hills to
Yeah,
die on,
exactly.
Yeah.
join the dead. One
Join
black
the dead,
for
my
an
brother.
instant. Target creature gets -5/-5 until end of turn. Descend 4. That creature gets -10/-10 until end of turn. Instead, if there are four or more permanent cards in your graveyard, just put it in B+ tier.
This
Tier.
is a Magic. This is a
This
Magic
is
the
what I'm
Gathering
talking
card.
about.
This is what I've been waiting for. This is a card I like. I like this guy.
I think that this is my favorite uncommon that we've seen so
This
far.
is a
My
common.
favorite common that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
This, if you don't have that Descend 4, this is gonna kill most things. And when you Descend 4, you're killing everything.
This is going to be a format, assuming that black is marginally playable, this is going to be a format warping card similar to Torch the Tower or Cutting, where things that have 5 toughness or less are just going to be worse.
Which is almost everything.
And things that have 6 or more toughness, it's like, okay, great, this thing doesn't die to join the dead.
The only reason this doesn't make A- tier is because it's double black. And I think that's good for the format.
I agree. I'm going to say B, just because it is a little bit hard to cast, but where are you at, John?
Yeah, a B. I mean, I'm gonna take this every single time. So
it's a B+ for me.
B+. Okay,
B+,
I like
yeah.
it. Okay, B plus up for John. So we'll see.
Yeah, just because I heard it.
Great card.
Mm-hmm.
No complaints there. Screaming Phantom, 2 and a black for a 2/2 flying, and when it attacks, you mill a card. This is the D flyer of every single set for 3 mana.
Oh boy. I'm choosing to die on this hill, dude. So I was actually thinking about this card in particular.
This is the Taxian Raptor. It's gonna buff my toxic creature.
This, I think I just want a card in my graveyard every single turn, and this card says put a card in your graveyard every single turn.
Yeah. Okay. So what are you giving it? I'm giving it a D. Nate, you're giving it a D?
Where is my map token when I want it?
Exactly.
That's
I know, right?
This is a D.
Okay, what are you giving it, John? You got
C minus.
Some people, hey, John, some people don't have a good taste in hats.
Obviously, this Phantom doesn't care about having a hat. Look at that crazy Einstein hat.
What do you think, John?
This is going C minus.
I believe. Okay, here we go.
This is my hope.
John's gonna be running a play set of these and every day.
John's on the hopium. Dies to dead weight,
but
we're not gonna talk about that.
Ooh.
That's okay. That doesn't matter. We don't need to think about that. What does this card do, John?
This card is Brood Rage Mycoid. This is 3 colorless and a black for fungus creature 4/3. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, create a 1/1 black fungus creature token. I really don't like this card if you're not in black green or in black white. Again, like the hope for the Descend deck is there, but even then, I don't want to be spending 4 mana for this. I'd spend, I mean, if you went 3 mana, that 2/2 flyer into this 4/3, I'm with it. But what it's usually gonna be is a 4/3 that just sits there as a 4/3 and dies. So I'm gonna go D on this.
Oh, that hurts me to hear you, because I was expecting you to be high on this card.
Ooh.
Because I feel like if there was a card that was to pay a big payoff for being in the deck, it's this. But man, you just plop this thing down. And you're right. If you don't have exactly the bird on the board, you just plop this thing down. It dies to basically everything, and then you're just sitting there with your 4 mana 4/3 that trades with anything.
I think I'm a little bit higher on that, because my hopium is with the Aristocrats deck, and in the Aristocrats deck you can also sack your 1 mana artifacts, or you can sack your 1-drop to get this Descend, and then it feeds your sacrifice fodder.
Now, I'm not clear on this because I'm hearing from different people, but for the Descend to trigger, you need a card. It doesn't trigger off of tokens.
Correct. That was when we were doing archetype skeletons. The first Descend deck I built was all token makers. And it doesn't work.
And that's what stops me from loving this card.
Yeah.
Because this
Mhm.
wants to be in that sack deck perfectly.
Yeah.
But the fact that those tokens don't go to the grave makes me really shed a tear for this guy.
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts. Is in the deck that where tokens do have that do work that way. This is like the MVP. You want a play set plus of these guys, and then every time you just put them down. As long as you and if you untap with them, you start printing tokens, and then otherwise you put them down on 5, crack one of your like explorer tokens or whatever, and then you get a 1/1, and that's great because a 4/3 make a 1/1, even though that 1/1 can't block, it's still pretty good. Although now I just had a thought.
Mm-hmm.
In Phyrexia All Will Be One, there was a 3/4 in white that had some upside where you could like bounce stuff back to hand, and then you'd get a 1/1 that couldn't block. And that card, if I recall, was like a D plus C minus maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me concerned for this card a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna have to go with a solid. I'm giving it a D minus. It's below rate with an ability that's just, I don't know. You're gonna play it and it's gonna die. Four drops in Modern Magic.
Can block.
Four drops in Modern Magic have to do more.
I'm
Yep.
a little bit higher on it than D minus. I'm on solid D for this, but I am acknowledging that it is like a full tier, if not more, lower because tokens dying doesn't trigger descent.
Yeah. And maybe we're wrong, and maybe like that's the thing, and then this card is sweet. But assuming that's the case, yeah. Where you at, John?
Yeah, I would say D. I would even. This guy makes me so mad. I would even like to say that his hair looks nice and he has nice art.
I think you'll still play him because he's still, he's still 4/3/4. He does make the deck, but
Yeah.
Nothing special. Veto's, is it Vito or Veto?
Veto.
Vito's Inquisitor, 3 and a black for a 3/3. It's Vampire Knight. You can pay black, sacrifice another creature or artifact. Okay, so you have to pay black and sacrifice another creature or artifact as part of the cost to put a 1/1 counter on Vito's Inquisitor, and it gains menace until end of turn.
Solid. I like this. I like this. This is gonna be the Aristocrats payoff.
The amount of 4 mana 3/3s that get counters for some reason that I've like reviewed and then subsequently never put in my Magic the Gathering deck is just starting to get annoyingly high. Like there was the one that was in the draw 2 one, and then there's like the one that like, oh, you get the little roll token. This is the adventurer. There's the only one that was ever any good had haste and made a 1/1. This doesn't. It has
But the
menace.
fact that it's creature or artifact, so I think you're gonna want to be playing those those sacrifice fodder creatures, and then when it attacks, it's gonna be attacking with menace. See, if it was just give a +1/+1 counter, I wouldn't care. But the fact that it gets menace, I think bumps this up significantly.
No, I'd rather play a good card in my deck. I mean, this isn't a bad card. Look, I'll give it a D minus. These cards never work.
This is a enabler for the sacrifice deck, and the sacrifice deck, like we saw in white, has a million tokens and random crappy creatures that you can sacrifice or artifacts you can get rid of. And what the deck needs is repeatable sacrifice outlets at common. This is a repeatable sacrifice outlet at common that I'm probably not playing on turn 4. I'm probably playing this on turn 5 or turn 6 or after, and using its ability repeatedly to give it additional 1/1 counters and buff it more from there. I'm not saying this card is great, but I am saying that if you don't get access to other sacrifice effects to get value from your random useless things, this will be very playable.
Yeah, and the decks that want it, they want this. In the decks that don't,
It's awful.
it's awful.
What do you
And
want
the
to give
deck
this?
that wants this is the black-white sack.
It's like this. What's crazy about this card is this card makes you want to give Mycoid a D because I feel like this card is worse than Mycoid, and I want to give, and I don't want to give this the same grade as Mycoid.
And it's at instant speed too. You're paying that black at instant speed.
I don't want to pay a black if I'm already paying sacrifice a creature to put a counter on my 3/3 for 4. I know. I'm giving this a D minus. This card is just narrowly avoiding being a wonderful art.
I'm going C minus.
This is my black hot take. I'm with John on this one. C minus.
All right, I can't wait to.
If I am entirely liable to be wrong here, and that's okay. But man, I want the Aristocrats deck to work, and part of that is this card needs to be playable.
All
And
right.
I think it will be.
Seems like the take being hot was mine all along. What is Primordial Nard, you John?
So it's a 4 colorless and 1 black for an insect horror. When it dies, discover 3 for a 5/2. I don't know how good
Have we talked about Discover yet?
Discover is. No, I don't think we have.
So Nate, what does Discover do?
Yeah. So for those of you been around for a while, you'll have heard of Cascade. This is slightly different Cascade. You exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value, whatever number it is, or less. In this case, 3. You can cast it without paying its mana cost, or you can put it into your hand if you don't want to cast it, and the rest of the cards go on the bottom of your library in a random order. In this case, you get a 3 mana spell or less.
In my case, I think this is going to definitely be my hot take. In Hearthstone, I know it's sacrilege to talk about another card game when I'm talking Magic the Gathering, because there was a card very similar. It's called Piloted Shredder that you that was similarly statted. It was a little less expensive, and when it died, you got a 2-drop at random. This is like very similar. It doesn't have a lot of health, but you get something back, and so it's really, really, really hard for this card not to 2-for-1. Now, obviously, it's not going to be great in blocking, so I think this only belongs in an aggressive deck. But honestly, anytime your card is 2-for-1ing, I'm okay. I'm pretty usually okay with that. I'm giving this card a C minus.
Yeah, like if like imagine this at its worst is 5 mana for a 5/2 draw card. How often are you gonna play that?
Yeah, like it doesn't block great, but it doesn't block great against small creatures. But it blocks great against big creatures. It attacks great against everything, basically. And like, yeah, sure, it dies to like the enchantment thing, but like you're still 2-for-1ing on cards technically. And if you gotten to turn 5 and they have that in their hand for some reason, like, okay, whatever. What have you done?
You're behind on board and your opponent plays this, I don't know.
You don't want to trade with it.
Yeah, you don't want to trade with it, and then you're getting smacked for 5. Yeah. You actually turned me around on this card. I think I'm gonna put it on a C.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
Hey, Nate doesn't know about the Pilot Shredder, John.
No, because that's actually a perfect I think analogy to this. And this is even slightly better because you could get a 3-drop.
Yeah, and you don't have to.
I'm
and you
saying
don't
on
get that.
average, you're probably gonna get a 2.
It's better because it's from your deck, and you can choose if you want to play it or not.
Yeah.
I think the card's fine. I think it'll be like in aggressive decks, you're happy putting this on the board.
Am I going to happily play this in most decks? Probably not. Am I going to happily play this in aggressive decks because it has the extra value when it dies, though? Yeah, I am. So this is what I like to call this is not Hearthstone D+.
I respect that.
I respect that.
I just don't know. I don't even know how to judge the Discover because I've never really played with Cascade, but I've just heard so many busted things about Cascade.
Yeah. I think Discover is going to be one of the most powerful mechanics in this format. I just think it being stapled to a creature that only belongs in such specific decks makes this specific.
Okay, would you ever sack this for value?
Yeah.
Like, because think about this, you plop this guy down.
Do you really want to play 5 mana sack fodder?
Well, it's like, okay, you plop it down, you attack in, they trade with it or something, or they target it with a removal spell, then you sack it.
I'm just gonna say I'm gonna love when the white deck goes to put their pacification on this card, I want to just be like, oh yeah, guess I'll have to
Yeah.
sack my 5/2.
Okay, sounds good. How about this one, Nate? How do you rate this one?
Ray of Ruin, 4 and a black for a sorcery. Exile target creature, vehicle, or non-basic land.
What?
Scry 1.
It's not even. It doesn't even hit artifacts.
It hits vehicles though, so it might not hit the front side of all those artifacts, but it does hit the back.
But it
side
doesn't
of
hit
most
so
of them.
many artifacts.
Correct.
What the heck?
I
Oh,
just
what-
don't know why this is at sorcery.
I think
You couldn't make it an instant.
I think it's because it's a single black pip, and so they're worried about too many decks splashing it.
Yeah.
Would be my intuition.
This
Like,
is
your green whatever deck that's not running any removal, suddenly splashing in some free removal for the ramp deck.
This is what I call emergency removal. If you need it,
It's there.
it's there, but in a format where Join the Dead exists that kills most
Ooh.
things consistently, I'm sad if I have to play this.
Hey, it also exiles caves. It's exiles and it scries. I'm giving this a D. I think
I'm
this
giving
card's like
this a D. The
I'll
exile
give it a D.
and the ability to hit non-basic lands and vehicles pushes it out of D- and up to D.
actually, you know what? I don't know, maybe am I going crazy if I give this a D plus because it exiles and scries, and it hits lands.
It only scries 1 though, and you're paying 5 mana. You
I'll give it
switch
a D
your
plus. I don't know.
Okay.
I think the single pip is gonna make it. It's gonna make its way to more decks than it probably belongs in.
Okay.
Speaking of cards that don't have a single pip, Rampaging Spiketail is a 5/6 for 4 and double black. It is a dinosaur, and when it enters the battlefield, target creature you control gets +2/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn. And it even has swamp cycling too, so that instead of playing this card, you can just go get your swamp, and
I
then
like it.
it triggers Descend.
Triggers
Look.
Descend. I don't think that the +2 -0 is bad. I think it's certainly better than the last 2 that we've seen.
Look, it's a sorcery speed combat trick. It's better than the white one. I don't know. If
And the
it's
blue
better
one.
than the blue one for me. Sorcery speed indestructible trick is just not what you want to be doing in your life for 6 mana. It's a 5/6.
But
with
it also
no
comes with a
text.
5/6 and swamp cycling. And again, being in black, where they're really wanting that Descend, I think pushes this guy.
I don't want to happily play this. What did we give the blue one? D-?
Something like that. I don't know. I think this thing, like, you top deck it, you can play it. If at any point before that you want to trigger a Descend, say you're like all your stuff is sitting there at Descend 3, just throw this in the graveyard and now you've Descended 4. It's like the perfect for 6 mana. It's a 5/6, which really matters because it's right over the line of that removal spell we were talking about. It gives indestructible, so you just basically get a free attack if you have anything on board. I kind of like it. I think I'm gonna give it a C-. I'll play 2 of these guys as my top end and comment if I don't have anything better.
I was gonna go D+, but I'll go with C-.
This is a D for me. If this thing had if you could play it at instant speed on your turn or something like that, it'd be way.
You're too
better.
spoiled. You're spoiled by WoW and there's the adventures of a buyer's attendance
Right.
and
I
whatnot.
know.
Okay, well, only time will tell. And with that, we wrap up the black and we move on to the red, and we're starting off the right way.
Also with that, I need to take 5 minutes.
Okay, sure. So we'll pause this and then we'll come back to it in just a second.
Yep.